The history of the nature of this region is a fight against time, the elements and invaders. Different dwellers find an asylum here, while the most dangerous predator, namely human beings, claimed these lands for themselves. But nature did not give in and preserved its wildness. Wild and thick forest, turf fence and sand dunes spread on northern side of country on a border with Belarus. The wildlife sanctuary of Zhytomyr Polissia, the land where roads end and impassable paths to prehistoric times begin. The water stayed in these areas, creating countless stream waters and large swamps after the last glacier. The lands of Polssia are situated in this humid lowland, in between the river Zubort and its tributary Bolotnitsa. Human activities are strictly defined here. They can only exist and have control according to the rules set by nature.
Це перший заповідник на Поліссі.
It is the first reserve created in Polssia. Its land spread from west to east 25 kilometers and 40 kilometers from south to north.
Порядка 20-25 кілометрів з заходу на схід, так, порядка 45 кілометрів. Це безлюдна територія.
It is a totally uninhabited territory where people never settled. Back in the olden days, it was a territory of another world. The famous stone village is familiar to all locals, and nowadays the influence of humanity is minimal or totally absent.
Антропогенний або вплив людини мінімальний або зовсім його нема.
On the other hand, countless animals and birds thoroughly enjoy life in the wilderness of the reserve. All the more, the reserve has an appropriate environment for taiga floral. The canopies of broadleaf and predominantly pine wood forests hang over the humid lowlands of swamps. They cover most of the territories of the reserve and create a secure corridor for moose migration. Historically, moose and hoofed mammals migrate here. The territory of the reserve is limited by a massive non-forested crest. From one side, and the Ubort River with a network of villages from the other side. These animals moved forward and populated free territories exactly along this specific corridor.
Місць з високою чисельністю у місця з низькою чисельністю.
A rare and vanishing cat species known as European lynx is breeding here. Blackcocks, great grouses, and hazel grouses are battling here during the mating season. One can easily find the tracks of hares and wolves, which indicate where they were moving and how they define their territories.
А зараз ми більш детально розглянемо, як це роблять вовки. Отже, вони йдуть по...
We will look closely how wolves are marking it. They're moving by the road and then mark a special site. They can do it by road or in a triangular area at the crossroads.
рослинка, або буває часто це якийсь пеньок.
They find a place with small plants or stipes, making these movements with fore and hind feet. You can see clearly that these marks were made long ago.
Мітки були зроблені дуже давно, але
some of them are fresh. The moss was pulled up just last night.
Тільки минулої ночі був викинутий. Ось ці теж мітки є зовсім свіжі. Це свіжо поновлені мітки вовками.
One can find a rare animal in these lands or travel through the wilderness and see a river in its primitive form. Twisted like a meander, Zhalobnitsa, with its swamp bottomland, is conserved to be in the same state as it was hundreds of years ago. Its swamped bottomland, which is rare in European countries, is protected by the Ramsar Convention. This eutrophic swamp, overgrown with rush and sedge, may be dangerous and impassable. These secret places enable rare birds to hide from people and settle the offspring without danger. A common crane is among them. One would be lucky to see one in the Polissia reserve. Usually, their nests are hidden by thick swamp tangles or canopies of tall trees in the deep forest. A large gray owl was recently spotted in the reserve, which also does not like to be exposed. This species builds nests only in the Polssia reserve. A photographer of wildlife will be lucky to snap a shot of eggs and owls feeding their offspring. The bird will not be startled by the slightest noise and leave the nest regardless of the potential danger. The central manor of the reserve is located in the middle of the forest, where no one can be seen for several kilometers. Once it was a forest farm named Luha Sloboda Selezivka, or Sparrow Tavern, with 4 yards at the end of the 19th century. Like 100 years ago, people here still cultivate land with horses, gather wild honey, set ovens and cook simple dishes.
Галушки робили з муки, борщ.
We were making halushki from flour. In the summer, they made red Ukrainian borscht, and sauerkraut was added in winter. Usually, the cabbage heads were chopped and soured.
Качани рубають. Да, і в діжку зложують. І варять такий кислий борщ.
Potatoes were planted and then they were cooked. This was a staple for most families. Then they fry some pig lard, make pancakes, cut a head of cabbage, and that was the meal.
Качан капусти з бочки натуральний, і все, і саме це така їда була.
However, first of all, they lit the oven and there were secret techniques. They used chips for igniting large corded wood. We produce chips like this for oven fire. We go to forest to gather chips for the winter season. We have to find oily chips that will easily burn in the stove. In this case, wood burn much better. Not every wood is good for chips. The best are dry and dead chips. If it is moist, we should not touch the tree. We have to take a dry one. One can see that it is sick. If dammer is coming, the top is dry and it is not green anymore. The oven in houses is an old tradition, which provided villagers with warmth, comfort, and a decent tasty dinner. Just several cordwoods carefully placed one on another is enough to bake bread or make a traditional mushroom broth.
І кожна печка має свій характер. Кожна по-своєму топиться.
Every oven has its own character. Every oven is heated differently and has their spark.
Так і казати.
It is said that every house knows their hostess, and so does the oven.
Никак нет. Да? Вот так тихонечко. Да.
So gradually, you place chips under the firewood and set the fire.
Палим наши дрова.
Country food always was easy to prepare. People avoid using products from stores, like villagers say, the chemical ones. They prefer simple dishes with natural products. People cook pancakes without fat, sugar, or eggs. They use only 2 ingredients, soured milk and flour. I call them pancakes by fire. Some people also call them large pancakes. They're like bread. From generation to generation, our grandmothers and grandmothers baked them.
Баби, прабаби, і вже от наші матірки теж всі вони займаються цим.
While the frying pan heats up, the hostess soaks dried porcini mushrooms for broth. It is not the season for fresh ones, yet those collected in the fall are enough to nourish a family with a standard nutritious and delicious dish. We have supplies from the forest, mushrooms and berries. We dry mushrooms, boil them. We salt them in a jar or grill them.
І варимо банки, засолюємо, і жаримо. А ягоди?
The berries are our primary source of income. Picking berries always contributed to the family budget. The blueberries for winter were drained, and the rest were sold. Yet Polssia locals never chased money. They considered it to be the root of all evil. There is a common saying that one who has big money lives a short life. These people are more interested in family, their land, and the forests that provide them everything they needed to live a good life.
В цьому році морозів не
There was no frost, and we hope that we will have an abundant blueberry harvest this year.
врожай чорниці. Нас під час
We have to deal with a tough period during its ripening because all the local people go berry picking.
Тому що місцеве населення до цього часу займається масовим збором чорниці. Чорниця, як у нас,
This berry, both in Polssia and all of Europe, is becoming an endangered plant, as the harvest of blueberries are decreasing. The berry is losing its productivity in those areas where people farm and grow products on agricultural lands.
в лісах, де ведеться інтенсивне лісове господарство, зникає або втрачає продуктивність свою по урожайності.
This forest was always rich and abundant in blueberries, which could be eaten without any concerns, since they are free from chemicals or exhaust fumes. This is proven by the natural detecting element, moss, which is sensitive to any environmental contaminants. Many tree boles are covered with small greens. It may seem that the trees are deceased, but this is in fact how moss lives. They are not parasites but organisms attached to a tree as a substrate.
Зараз ми пройдемося сосняком зеленого.
We're walking in a pine forest with green moss. It is the most common forest type in the Polssia Reserve.
Лісу. Він має дуже м'який такий килимок.
The carpet is yielding. Initially, it is very comfortable to walk here, but the further you go, the more exhausted you become. The accustomed inhabitants, such as polar hare and lynx, are used to it.
Види тварин до цього пристосовані, особливо такі, як заєць, біляк, рись.
Their paws are wide and soft, therefore they don't sink into the moss, and they do not leave traces.
Не провалюються.
The traces of woodpeckers are instantly seen on tree boles, in contrast to other inhabitants. It is an interesting tree, since one can see the packed bark on the bole. It is the result of a woodpecker's activity. It could have been a three-toed woodpecker, which is an endangered species. It could have been other species that tried to fight the vermin.
Намагаються боротися з цим шкідником, допомагають лісникам. Але їх зусилля
They're helping foresters, but their work is ineffective since vermin multiply very quickly.
все ж таки шкідники дуже сильно у нас розповсюджуються.
Scholars explain that this phenomenon is due to climate changes. Even local areas of humid and rainy Polssia suffered from droughts. The level of precipitation decreased in recent years. There were no high waters, and the trees were affected by different infections. These processes lead to irreparable losses, and it will take decades to raise a new tree. The wood is highly appreciated in these areas. It is the most preferable material for building houses and household items. The wood is also a fuel for the oven to warm the home. The forest lands never ran short of such increased demand. Local residents of Polssia cared for the future generations by treating the forest with respect. They said their routine life and never took more than they needed. No resident of Polssia ever built large wooden houses or any specific items and regarded it as a luxury product. They never took an excessive amount of materials from the forest. After all, people that live in the forest don't need a lot to live a good, comfortable life. These houses with 2 small rooms and a passage were built only by prosperous and large families. Every Saturday, the hostess cleaned the floor perfectly with a broom made of birch twigs. The oven was greased with bleach and the family dinner was prepared on it. The main course was mushroom broth. It is starting to boil. You may take an onion, a carrot and mushrooms and fry in oil, adding garlic and a laurel leaf. Some people like to add meat and mushrooms only to prepare mushroom broth.
І гриби. І получається грибна юшка.
People learn how to survive in this world, lost among peat swamps and unfamiliar for civilizations. They learned how to live in cold summer, frequent rains, painfully biting flies and accepting all hardships as blessings. They saw high waters and intense snowstorms as something inevitable and sought the benefit in it. For example, if a river overflows its banks, then fish have the opportunity to spawn and gain fat, while Polissians will hope for a good take. In short, this lifestyle of caring and paying attention to everything that nature offers in this region remains solid to this day.